Well, it's 7 p.m., Monday, September 11th, 2023. This is the Town of Brookfield Planning Board. I call this meeting to order. Go through the roll call. I'm Tim Straz. Ed Ingles. Here. Terry Ward.
Here.
Gus Stratton.
Here.
Carrie McMenemy.
Here.
Marshall Goldberg. Rich Zacher.
Here.
Excellent. Our alternate is not here, so we will skip. Yes, that's him walking in the door. It is. Mr. Goldberg, how are you this evening?
I am just in time.
You are. Would you like to be a voting member tonight?
Oh, please.
Excellent. I'm going to move public comments to after our public hearing, and we will go next to announcements, correspondence with mail, which I have received a subdivision application for tax map 5 lot 2, 3 Moose Mountain Road. Sounds like Mr. Berry will be seeing more of each other.
Is that the greenhouse parcel?
Yes.
They're actually going to be representing that themselves.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you. So we will review this complete this at the next meeting to accept the application. Review and possible approval of minutes from August 14th, 2023. I make the motion to accept the minutes as submitted. Wait a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes from August 14th, 2023, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is good. All right. The main item for this evening is a public hearing for subdivision application at Stoneham and Tibbetts Hill Roads, tax map 4, lot 8. I am going to, 7:02, call this public hearing to order and ask that anybody who would like to speak at this public hearing to sign in, please. And let me get out the sign form. Place this here. If people would like to sign in who wish to speak at the public hearing, that would be great. Very good, thank you, Mr. Comeau. Very good. No, you're fine.
Doesn't he want to sign? Or he's,
Oh, sure, sign in.
He's going to sign
need
it.
to sign in?
You'll sign it also.
You first.
While we're signing in, I'll just go over the hearing procedure review and rules of conduct. Please make sure that if you ask any questions or have any comments during this hearing, that they are addressed to the chair. Parties will not address each other directly. Please identify yourself and your address before you speak, and do not engage in side conversations. I will read the text of the notice, which is this is a subdivision application of Stoneham and Tibbetts Hill Roads, tax map 4, lot 8. And we'll give Mr. Berry the opportunity to present for this application. It's all you.
Right. Good evening. My name is Joe Berry. I'm a project manager with Berry Surveying. Tonight we're representing the Byrne Family Trust out of subdivision at 300 Stoneham Road. The property is currently 18.8 acres and has frontage on Stoneham and Tibbetts Hill Road. And what we are proposing is to subdivide the lot into 2 lots. The existing house would keep just shy of 6 acres, lot would be 12.86 acres. We've submitted a 2-sheet plan set. Sheet 1 would be the sheet that gets recorded at the Registry of Deeds. It shows the meets and bounds of the lot, wetland setbacks, and lot areas, also all the abutters. At the last meeting, it was accepted as complete. There was one comment about notifying the abutters of tax map 2, lot 1. We worked with the assessing department and the tax collector on notifying everyone as correctly as possible. And the revised plans have that information on it. Sheet 2 of the plans is a topographic sheet, which shows on the proposed lot, proposed house location, proposed well, 4K leaching area with test pits that will suitable for our septic system. There will be no boundary markers to set as we're holding 2 existing monuments for this project. We're proposing to take power across Stoneham Road off land owned by John Wentworth. He's agreed to give us an easement, and we're going to work with him on getting that easement. It's hopefully a condition of approval. And I've supplied an email stating that from the owner. We're requesting no waivers to any regulations at the time being, and with that I'll turn it back to the board and address any comments.
Yes, thank you very much. I will state for the record that the code enforcement officer did provide an email indicating that he was present for the percolation test. So thank you. Any questions from board members regarding this subdivision application as presented before we open it up to public comment? Quiet evening.
Can you show us on the map where the closest wetland is? Proposed house?
The proposed house, it's at not the toe of the slope, but getting towards the bottom of the hill. There's a small isolated wetland here. And then there's a bigger wetland that kind of runs down the property about halfway down.
And the house is down.
And the house is up at the top of the hill.
Thank you.
I had a question. I asked this question at a previous meeting, but I didn't really understand the response. It was about current use. If you're subdividing the property, 12.6 is it?
Yeah.
And the other 6. One property is not going to be within current use.
How
How do you
if
rectify that?
we can work with the assessor on if they have to pay a current use penalty, to take it out of current use, which would be the house lot, because they're going to keep this lot in current use. But I've also been told some towns, they also own the 28 acres roughly across the street, and that they've able to combine those as one piece of property for current use status. Whether that's true, I'm not sure. We always have the homeowners work with the assessor, but we'd be happy to help produce a new current use map if needed.
Yes.
So the 6 acres would be added to the 28 acres. So
I have one question, a point of clarification.
It's not your chance yet, Mary Lou. We're going to get to you. Trust me, I'm going to give you
No,
I'm going to give you your opportunity. Anything from the side of the table? Nothing, no. Very good. Everybody else set on this? Yep. Mary Lou, the floor is yours.
thank you.
Public comment is still.
So just one question. You indicated that the property that John Wentworth owns is on Stoneham Road. I believe it's on Tibbetts Hill.
Yeah, on Tibbetts Hill. Did I say
Okay.
Stoneham?
You did.
Okay, I'm
Sorry.
at Tibbetts Hill.
I knew that.
Any other comments, Mary Lou, on this?
Probably not till you're just about done and wrapping up.
Well, this is your chance.
Oh, this is my chance.
Yes.
So, I said it at the last meeting and I'll say it again. I don't think it was proper for the property to be logged before this hearing and this whole process had been approved. I love this neighbor, and I have no problem with them building this house and coming up here. Obviously, this is how I acquired land here in New Hampshire and in Brookfield, but I would like to have seen it done according to following the rules. So,
That's understood, thank you. Anything else? Okay,
Can I comment?
absolutely.
The town doesn't require an intent to cut when you're clearing a lot for a house. That's what we've been doing for years.
But the first item in the subdivision regulations state you can't clear for a house lot until the subdivision is finalized.
Just learn something.
Yeah.
yeah, so,
Yes, Mary is right here.
The owner does apologize because they didn't know about that when they filed their permits to do the cutting. So he did send me an email today and said, I was actually unaware of this, and sent me a copy of the regulation with it highlighted. And
Yeah. Thank you, it's noted. It'll be in the minutes.
thank you, Ken.
You're welcome. Any other public comment? Very good. Now it's time for the board to discuss and review the public comments, which I think we just did.
I think so.
All right, this may be it's going on faster than I expected. At this time, I will close the hearing then. No more public comments will be heard, and the board will deliberate. Okay, board, let's deliberate. Has everybody reviewed the requirements for this lot to be subdivided and checked? Footage, acreage?
Looks good to me. I think they make the requirements.
Any other comments, concerns? Does anybody want to make a motion?
Make a motion, we accept the application?
I'll second it.
Do we need to discuss any more? No? All those in favor of approving this subdivision application, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. So thank you. So hopefully you have a Mylar copy around.
Yep.
And we can sign it.
Black pen, right? Does he have additional copies? You have additional
I
copies?
have 4 copies that they brought to us with the updates.
We should sign those also.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sure if Brookfield required both sheets to be printed on Mylar, so I also wrote the topographic sheet on Mylar, but that doesn't get recorded, so
Thank you.
I just didn't want to be out of luck.
Understood. So you want to sign one for the town to hold?
Yeah, Greg puts copies in the bowl.
Yep.
He asked to get signatures.
Yep, so you can sign, so anybody can start? Sure, you want to start?
Okay. Sure.
Just put those next to each other and everybody can come around and sign.
Sign this bottom one too.
Sign this one too?
I don't know.
Yeah, we'll sign that one, just this.
Extra.
Thank you.
Once recorded, how many copies would the board like?
I'm sorry?
Once the plans are recorded, how many copies would you like brought to the town?
We don't need any, we're all set.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna take the Mylar, drop it off. I'll drop it off at the Carroll County.
Who's saying?
Office. This paper one was satisfactory.
We all sign it?
Yes, sir. Spit her out.
So those Mylar copies do need the wetlands stamp on them. Can I take those, get it stamped and bring them back?
Yes, you'll have to.
I wasn't aware that Brookfield did the recording, so.
Yep, we'll sort it out.
The date, right?
I'll be there. So I'll go on to this one. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time tonight.
All right, we'll open up the floor to the regular meeting and public comments. Yes?
Just trying to find out if there's any input on the CPA status on the solar panels.
Fortunately, that applies with the selectmen. If the planning board doesn't have anything to do with the ZBA on that.
The selectmen received an email from, come up,
It's Bright Spot Solar.
Al, and it's addressed to Nick and copied to the selectmen from Packy, who was the person that presented. The key paragraph is to be very sure that we move the tracker back another 35 feet on an angle from the corner of the lot. So it's going to move it 35 feet on a diagonal away from that corner.
So whereabouts does that fall? I've never gone in to measure their land, so in relationship to the house, their house.
It's going to be much closer to their house. They're moving it diagonal towards their, towards the, whatever it is, towards the back and towards the house.
Okay, so it's towards the back.
35 additional feet from where it's placed.
Okay.
I know this is the wrong place to ask this question, but one of the things that came up with the original, Bill Nelson, there were a number of issues, the 50 feet setback, there were all sorts of things that came up, the different types of the installation type. What was the house, what was something else?
Now, was it, in going around, because we let people know that there was a planning board meeting tonight, and we were told that if we had a concern, we could, bring it up. So we let a few people know from the other night, and they asked, be sure you know whether or not that permit was granted, and was it granted for an ancillary structure or a structure, because it makes a difference in the setbacks. This is all new to me, so excuse me. Can you explain which it is, so I can go back?
It was granted for an auxiliary,
Ancillary.
ancillary structure.
Okay,
Perhaps it should have been a structure.
okay,
The 35 feet here, on top of where he is today, would satisfy both requirements.
okay.
But pushing another 35 is going to be very close to the 50 that a structure would require.
Just, we don't want to have to come back because we don't want to bother you either. And so this is all new. So is this going to, are the other people that were here concerned? Is there some way that they're notified, or do they have to come to you to ask? And if so, if they still have a concern, who do they discuss it with at this time?
So the public is more than welcome to come to our monthly meeting and voice concerns about this. You'll see on the agenda that we already had started discussion about solar installations prior to the actions that happened in the ZBA meeting. We've been discussing it for a few months now because we understand that this is a concern of the town. So we are we're in the beginning stages of drafting zoning for the town regarding solar installations and other things. So we welcome the public to attend and help shape the direction of that. We absolutely would enjoy the input.
Okay, now, it said 30 days from when they met or the last meeting. Again, you've got to understand I'm ignorant of this. 30 days to have it discussed and they make a decision, and I'm assuming this is what's come of that.
I believe he can appeal the decision within 30 days.
Okay,
His email indicates he's moving it.
okay. Anything? Is that going to say?
I have a different question for you.
Yes, sir. Your name?
My name is Bob Compton. I'm the offended person with the farm across the street.
Yes.
The understanding there was a mistake made at the town level and not wanting to go through more aggravation, because it really does have an impact on my farming operation with my horses. With all of the stuff that went into building that, I spent my entire summer getting my horses used to it for something that was built in the wrong place. And so, are you going to require him to submit a new site plan so that the town actually knows what he's doing? Or are we just going to go from an email? They may get it right, because when he went through and did all the things he did, when he measured from the road instead of the middle of the stone wall, all of those pieces, it's not fair to us that he does it wrong again.
The selectman can answer that. Unfortunately, we're not the enforcers of...
I understand. It's just very frustrating.
He put a stake in the ground indicating where he's going to move it to. And Nick, the building inspector, went out and confirmed that it's far enough back. Green stake in the ground is what we were told.
The issue I have, just so you're clear, I spent my professional life working on safety of flight equipment for airlines. And I understand the requirements piece, and precision matters. And so for him to haphazardly do it without any guidance seems very unfair to the townspeople that are thoroughly offended by what happened.
We'll confirm with the code enforcement officer that it's back far enough. And if you got concerns about where the town goes in the future, this is the board you want to talk to.
Well, I'm definitely coming back here.
So,
But it's still, just so you know, I'm not very satisfied with this. Because of the circumstances that were created and the process they went through and how they did things. And I mean, it's not like that's the only thing on his land that's like a little bit out of the zoning codes. I mean, he has a one-car garage that's 22 feet from the stone wall. It's not like he follows the rules.
Joe Nelson.
Yes, John.
I know, I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
I have to tell you that the night of that meeting and in conversation coming back to tell you about this meeting tonight, all of the people were very concerned, and it's on tape, you can watch it again, about the fact that Packy Campbell, he kept contradicting himself. 1 minute it was this, 1 minute it was that. So we don't know if he's lying to us. And he got away with it the first time, and I, for one, do not want to see anybody get away with lying and pulling another fast one on this town. And I really believe that our country's in a mess, because nobody speaks up when they need to. So I'm here to speak up for those people today. And I don't know what I can do. I can't move it and I can't get out there screaming, but I've been tempted to have a big poster in my hand and stand out there and walk up and down the road. And at this point, I think there would be other people with me. So it's not the board so much as lying, but this man sat right there and he lied left and right. And my son, the priest, was horrified. He said, I can't believe. He said one thing and then my son had pictures and, oh no, I know. Well, you don't know. And I worked in real estate and still distorted the bill. And if I had walked in and asked to put a pipe in the ground and put that monster up with no site plan, no deeds, no lines, they didn't. I thought I remembered hearing that they had no documentation to back up what they said. Well, that's not acceptable. The rest of us have to obey the law, and I know all of you do the best that you can. But, I don't trust. That's my feeling. How do we get around that without causing a scene?
There were a lot of things discussed at that meeting about the things that in the ZBA and everything else, as far as the beauty of the town, that may destroy the beauty of the town. It was one thing right after another that people felt that this was against what Brookfield is like and where it's going and that type of thing. Were any of those other things under consideration, that there were so many issues brought up, does it need to be covered with shrubs or something like that?
It's not required. It's not required, Bill.
Somebody said it was, I don't know.
If we want to, this is
This is where we want to solve those
talk about it.
items
Going forward.
going forward. Because unfortunately, we're in a position of reacting a lot of the time, which puts us in a difficult position as your neighbors. And so we certainly want to try to make it right for the future. And that's the intention of our discussion tonight and the continued discussion around this.
And does Mr. Campbell have to write and tell you exactly where he's putting it? So if he puts it in another spot again?
He put a stake in the ground and the code enforcement officer looked at it, said it was okay. I'll talk to Nick about it, make sure it's clear.
I have to ask one silly question then. Is the code enforcement officer the same person that reviewed the original application and gave him the wrong building permit?
I got to say that the selectmen were involved with that decision also. So we can't blame the code enforcement officer.
Yeah. It might be a better discussion for the selectmen meeting than for this one. I don't want to...
I don't want to show up again because I have to look at that stupid thing every morning.
Yeah.
Tuesday, come to our meeting on Tuesday, that's the right place.
That would be the right place to have the discussion. I'm
This-
sorry, let's have somebody new. Yes.
Okay. I have
Your name, please.
Jennifer Murphy.
Thank you.
I have a unique perspective on that piece of property. I owned it for 14 years. And I know that there is a seasonal brook that runs, it bisects that piece of property. And if they move that piece of equipment closer to, if I'm seeing it in my eye the way it is, it's going to be closer to that brook. Are there any special considerations about that? Because it is a seasonal runoff that goes to the property next door.
Yes. I think you have to have that conversation with the selectmen at their meeting. Unfortunately, the planning board is not here to enforce anything. We're here just to write zoning and do, as you saw, subdivisions, approvals and things like
That
that.
might be something to keep in mind for future.
Well, this is part of, if you stick around, and after we go through the master plan items, we're going to talk about solar zoning, and so I encourage you to stay, and we certainly, we're going to discuss it, what we've had, and we certainly would want feedback and help shape it.
Just a question for,
Yes.
maybe Mr. Zapper could answer. The minutes that did not list a lot of people who came to speak at the last meeting, the ZBA, and the minutes are inaccurate. The poor young woman who was taking the minutes, what a beautiful job, but she was sitting in the back, so she missed like 10 people. So if you would somehow get the word that they need to be corrected. I mean, I think there's probably 6 of us here that we never even noted as being here. So,
Okay.
for their own sake. Thank you.
Any other public comments? Yes?
Hi, Susan Alec. I was at that meeting, and I just want to reiterate on some of the things that Joe mentioned. I had to go to Dover today, and I like to use the roads less traveled. I don't go on the turnpike if I can avoid it. And don't you know, I went by a gas station with a solar panel. I went by a storage unit with 3 solar panels. Now, I'm not an engineer. My spatial talents may not be that good, but Mr. Campbell said that the one there was not a commercial industrial size unit. Well, my God, it certainly looked like the same size as those at the gas station and the storage unit. And, you know, we've got something that's comparable in square footage to that down on Governor's Road. I don't know the names of the people that live there now. It was owned by the Youngs. It's adjacent to Martha Pike. And their panel probably is as long as this room, but it's short. And where they have it, and there's foliage growing up behind it, the woman who was in the car with me said, "What's solar panel?" And I had to stop and back up so she could look through and see it. You know,
Yep.
That's perfectly acceptable. That's
Yep.
wonderful.
Good. Well, thank you for your comment. I'm going to stop the comments on this subject for this time being. I would say that probably the best location to continue the discussion that you're having would be with the selectmen on Tuesday nights.
Start at 6:30.
Yes, 6:30. Any comments other than the solar discussion here before I move on? I want to give anybody else who had anything else a chance. Very good. We're going to move along to old business. The first item is master plan. So I spent some time this weekend trying to build in the front section, section 1, and then some of the other sections to continue to get us to a point where we have just our amended sections and the balance of everything else. I realize it's short order for people to have reviewed it, but I don't know if there's any comments or discussion, because my plan is to continue to build out the second half of it. Fair enough. All right. So I will continue to build out the second half, and then we'll discuss it next month. All right, so solar installations is the next item. Mr. Ingalls took the time to kind of go through, take from our last meeting, for everybody else who's here, our last meeting we reviewed Durham, Dover, and Summersworth zoning, because they all have a solar zoning ordinance, and we decided that there was a desire to kind of combine several of them. There are lots of great attributes to all of them. However, we live in a very rural community, and so those communities have 4 or 5 different zoning areas. We just have residential agricultural, rural agricultural zone, so it could be simpler. But we decided, we reviewed it, and at the time we looked at it, there was kind of 2 different installation options. There was the freestanding pillar mount that we all are aware of now, and then there was rooftop installations that we were discussing. Did everybody get a chance to look at Ed's comments? And let's just kind of have a quick discussion amongst ourselves before we open it up to public comment on that.
There's also ground mounted, similar to the one that was referenced on Old Governors.
Yes,
Terry had one also.
he did.
From
In Barrington, yes. So, anybody have comments on what Ed said at all?
I do.
Yeah, go for it, Marshall. I'd love to hear it.
Would EV installation be part of the alternative energy system definition?
Well, let's have a quick discussion about alternative energy systems. Because that adds a whole nother element to this, which I appreciate, which when I read through this, I was thinking to myself, well, this is a lot bigger than just a solar ordinance at this time, that perhaps we need to get somebody that, you know, our official zoning ordinance writer, the town lawyer, to weigh in on that and determine whether or not she thinks combining these or having this additional may be cumbersome to it. I don't know.
Yes.
What are people's thoughts on that?
Well, if we're talking wind compared to solar, a 10-foot tall wind tower may not be sufficient.
Well, we already have wind ordinance, so
Okay,
they're all set there.
By EV, you're referring to charging stations, I'm assuming,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Just trying to anticipate,
Yeah.
right, what's
But
going
those
on
are
in the
good.
world, right?
I would think you should add, if you had a battery wall, that might qualify. I don't think like just plugging it into the wall would qualify personally, but.
No, I think you'd need something, right?
Well, the question is, would you backfeed from a vehicle to your home? Like, is that alternative energy? I guess that's where the definition needs to be really robust.
Right, because you have geothermal in there, which was another one I was thinking of.
Yeah.
That's listed in there.
Yeah.
As far as charging stations are concerned, you may have put limitations with regard to the number of charging stations because somebody could use it commercially.
Right.
So the definition in here for alternative energy systems is a structure, any equipment and the related components used to create electricity and or heat from non-traditional carbon-related sources. Examples include, I think you added this in, outdoor wood furnaces, geothermal systems, modular, nuclear, etc. No solar energy systems are defined separately. So I think that was the one that's the big question that we should inquire.
If we should separate it out from solar.
Right.
Yeah.
Separate what from solar?
Alternative energy sources.
So should we just have solar that parallels our wind ordinance and then have a whole other one for everything else? Or should we just
Thermal,
push it all together?
Probably at this time, I think so. For more immediate.
I think we want to be as broad as we can be. So that, so if something comes that we're not considering, we have a home for it and we can say, it fits under this section.
But if we have a third section, if we have wind, solar, and then that third section, I think we need to be tight on solar so we don't have any future errors.
But we don't know what's next, so if we can sweep it into one, why don't we sweep it in?
Well, we did have a brief conversation with her about that, combining all the energy, heating.
What did she say? Yeah?
No, she was very, didn't want to commit to anything there.
Well, you'd have to define these specific things, right?
Yes.
Anyway.
Well, the way it's written now, it's wood boilers on the outside
Right.
and solar. And we have a lot of wood boilers in town, so the next one coming in, if this passes, would have to be.
Comply with that, correct. Or if a modification or existing occurred, then that would have to meet the new zoning.
So we've been fortunate. We haven't had a lot of feedback about wood stoves,
Yeah.
furnaces, close to a lot line or next to someone's house.
Right.
We've been fortunate because where they put them, the lots are big. We've got a lot of neighborhoods where they're cozy. And if someone puts one in close to a lot line, we're going to have an issue with this slide.
Right, Cedar Park.
Yes, Cedar Park,
Yeah.
or even Lyford Road, those houses are,
Yeah.
it's a community.
Yeah, the chimney's only 10 feet off the ground on those things.
Yes.
Man, it's
So
small.
I'd sweep that in if we have an opportunity.
And is it an ancillary or structure?
Right.
Well, the one along those lines, what we heard the other night was, we don't want to see them. If you want to put one in, forget the 50-foot setback. We don't want to see them. So that means you got to put them way back or build the screen. Right, that was the feedback. If you don't see them, okay, but if you see them, we don't want to see them. And the wording here isn't, I think, restrictive enough.
It's not?
Yeah, push them, I mean, it says 50 feet. Because you referred to the other part of our zoning, 50 feet, I don't think was sufficient. I mean, Packy said he had 3 in his backyard.
Right.
He's got 15 acres.
Right,
So they're in his backyard, but they're out back.
right,
So if you have 15 acres and you want to put them out back, go for it.
yeah.
That's my opinion. But if you put them in the front yard, that's not so good.
So let's try to separate the two items here. The first one being alternative energy systems. So I think we table that one for now to get some clarity from the town lawyer about whether or not we should be grouping this in with a solar issue. And then from there, she can provide some guidance. Let's talk about the big issue on the table, which is our solar requirements. So my one of my notes that I had in looking through this is we don't have, isn't a differentiation between roof mounted and ground mounted, and whether or not there should be the same regulations.
Well, the way Durham handles it is that roof mounted is basically okay.
Yes.
And then they have a bunch of restrictions on the towers. And ground mounted, ground or
Pedestal mounted.
pedestal, yeah.
And the way I read that one is if you come in with a roof mounted and you do all these steps,
You're good.
you're good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can see it being swept right into this.
I think we have 150 feet in here, which is what Durham said,
Yeah, I saw that.
for the pedestals.
The system is placed 150 feet or more from any portion of a public road. Freestanding systems over 12 feet must be placed as far as possible from any public right-of-way or line of sight.
That's right from Durham, which the lawyer also wrote.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But as far as possible means, right, we have a small lot. It's only a 50 by 50 foot lot. As far as possible could be,
Well, you still have to have 150 feet though, from the road. So you can't have one.
Well, we have to be careful though, because everybody is entitled to solar sky space access.
But can it be on their roof?
Put it on the roof. If you have a small
I
lot.
think we can't be broad, because then we're gonna run into problems. I think we have to be specific about this, based on this situation. That's just my thoughts. I just feel like it's gonna end up getting somehow through some loophole if we're not specific.
We're not saying you can't have one, we're just saying you can't have
A pedestal.
A pedestal.
Right.
on a small lot. Just, you
It's
can
gotta
have
go on the
roof.
roof. Mhm.
And if you don't have, if your house is east-west,
Yeah, you're at a loss.
sorry.
Yeah,
Or you can mount them, this way on your roof or whatever.
right.
Mhm.
well, the ones that I've read, they have to be parallel to the roof or horizontal on the roof plane within 6 inches, so you can't stack them up on an angle.
Yeah, so we might want to add that as well, we can sign in here. It wasn't in Durham. Terrace.
I'm sorry, what?
No, you're good. We're just looking at you. Doing good.
Doing great.
On page 3,
Yes, sir.
under location regulation,
Yep.
on C4, only one of each type of solar or alternative energy system is permitted per recorded lot.
Yeah.
So,
You could have a pedestal and a roof mounted system.
can I have
Yeah.
geothermal and
Yes.
solar, but I couldn't have I don't know. Is there a third one
Not yet.
out of all of that stuff?
Well, only one type of solar or alternative energy. It could be.
Only one of each, right?
Yeah.
Are we gonna write this just for solar?
Well, that's, yes.
That's
I
what we
think
should
it's-
start.
Yes.
Right, because as soon as you say
Yes.
alternative.
Yes.
Okay. Next one is under use regulation number 2. A building permit shall be required for any physical modification to an existing solar or alternate system that materially alters the size and or type of the energy system or its location. So to me, I don't know how to define that it materially alters.
If someone wants to increase the amperage, you may want to increase the square footage of the reflective surface.
Right, so how do we judge what's material? Because it says that materially alters the size.
You may need to consult with an electrician or someone, or a solar engineer, somebody who designs these systems.
That's
Well,
my only.
I read it as in you have 12 panels on your roof, and then you realize you need another 12 more.
So that's materially more?
Yeah.
But if it's 6, it's not materially more?
No. Any X number above what's existing, I guess,
Is material?
yes.
That's how you read that?
I would, yes.
Okay. Well, I would.
How would you?
That's why I just underline it, because what does that mean? Like,
So it's requiring a building permit in order to expand.
right. Which I'm fine
Which
with.
is an
I'm
expansion, yeah.
just challenging the materially alters.
Gotcha.
I think you might
So you
have,
might, perhaps expanding.
to design limitations, because
Okay.
people can be very creative with interpretation of the rules. For example,
That's where I'm
you
going.
may have only like 800 square feet of footprint of the house, but they can extend it over a pergola, you know? So is that going to be something that's going to be acceptable? So,
No.
I mean, we're very much in early stages of trying to fashion this, so,
Well, that's why I bring it up.
yes.
That's what.
Yeah.
Right?
We could put a number on it, 50%, 25%, whatever.
Something.
Yeah.
We have to come up with 12 feet, 25 feet.
And D3,
Yep.
like-kind replacements shall not require a building permit. I disagree. I think we should, anytime, we should have a building permit if we're replacing it, we should.
I think they mean if the panels fade or go, they have a service life. And if you have to replace them, you just replace, it's like you were a light bulb. You know, I think that's what intended in the statement, I don't know. By like-kind.
Even if that's the intention, it needs to be more specifically, stated, just so
Right.
that's,
Yeah. I think I saw
there's no
elsewhere-
room for error.
I
Yeah.
saw elsewhere in here, there's a statement regarding if you were to repair or replace, that you would have to have, it could be replaced with like, but not require a building permit. I thought I should put that in here.
I think D1, 2, 3, and 5, I should have made that 4, but these come directly from our wind
Yeah.
ordinance, and I don't know what 4 was, but it was something just about
Okay.
wind, so I took it out.
Gotcha.
And then I just changed where it said wind to solar or alternative. So it's basically what we have for wind right now. So all these things
Oh,
apply
I
to
see.
wind as we have.
So
it
you
now.
need to get a permit if you're doing a like exchange for wind?
No, you don't,
Oh, you don't?
no. But if you're doing a material change, you do.
Okay.
So what if in the future, the technology is such that they're no longer black, they're reflective? I do an upgrade, like size, but now they're reflective.
That was listed in here.
Was it reflective?
Yeah,
Should be required building.
right. Go for it. Yeah.
We're waiting for it.
Yeah, we're all ears.
Well, isn't that what Bob was talking about?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
The
that's
next
why that
one-
would cause.
The next one was on E, dimensional performance and design standards. And then 1E, The system is placed 150 feet or more from any portion of the public road. Freestanding systems over 12 feet must be placed as far as possible from any public right of way.
Yeah.
So, in the Lightford case, how, I don't recall how wide that baby was.
Yeah.
Is it more than 12 feet?
Yeah.
Probably 12 square or something, 14 square or something like that.
And then, I couldn't do the math, but if you have a 2-acre lot, you know, and you're saying 150 feet, I mean, does all that math work? Or we've already established that it works?
Determine, it's really up, I mean, it's up to the landowner to do their due diligence in the building permit process that gets checked by the town. So all we're doing is ensuring that there's some kind of check and balance that occurs.
Gotcha. Well, so,
But also-
whether it's 150 or it's 200
Right.
or it's 75,
Right.
I just didn't know the math, basically, you know,
Right.
if you have a house and the thing, and it doesn't.
Oh, you know, you don't know the orientation of the house.
Orientation of
The
the
house
house
could
either.
be set back 50 feet away from the property line in the back
Right.
left-hand corner. You could put it in the opposite corner.
Right.
You know, there's so many variations.
Yep.
Well, is there a regulation that we can easily work with is the quantity? That's an issue that may be a
Well,
problem.
that's outlined in here also because there's kilowatt hours of the size of a,
Right, well, I read that, but I mean, let's say a household, not all households use the same amount of energy.
correct?
So, I mean, if we make a blanket statement, like it has to be within 20% of their monthly usage, I mean, that kind of gives some flexibility and yet,
Yeah, that's fairly restrictive.
well, it is, but I mean, we're trying to be restrictive, aren't we?
Yeah, but then you're infringing on their personal liberties by
Yes.
saying you can only use so much power.
Right.
Well, right, but the surplus is where the issue comes from, because then it eliminates the possibility of being a commercial business.
Well,
Generating
generate
electricity.
commercial business.
But the commercial aspect is not visible.
Right.
It's just a net balance for respect to the electric company.
Yeah. Yes.
So it's not going to disturb the quality of the neighborhood if somebody's generating more electricity than everybody else, and you don't notice any difference in the visual aspects of the.
Well, as long as they're not doing it with a 24 by 24
Right.
panel.
Let's open it up for Joan's comments here. We'd love to hear you. Yes, we've been going back and forth, so we'd love to hear.
No, I really don't understand, but somewhere, I was trying to understand the ordinances before the last meeting, and I was reading down through them, and somewhere it said that if, and I don't know which structure it was, you needed to send letters, registered mail to the abutters before the permit was granted, not after the Empire State Building was put there. So with that, I mean, if there's something in the ordinance there
Yeah.
that the code enforcement officer needs to be made aware of, it bothers me, because I don't know where this all fell. And if this code enforcement officer may be a wonderful man, he may be totally qualified, certainly more qualified than I am, but if he's not following and not doing that, we never got a registered letter. Maybe we weren't supposed to. We got one after it was up and it was out of our control.
So, yeah, so you wouldn't, by our current zoning, you would not receive notification of this kind of installation. You were given notification because there was a waiver was requested through the ZBA, and by law, they have to provide abutters with notification of that hearing. So that was the correct process. We certainly want to put zoning in place that
Avoids this kind of thing from
Exactly.
happening.
Yes.
And then, like they're saying, his lot is so small, so where's he gonna put it? Well, that's fine, but that doesn't leave your horses well. I mean, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I looked out the other day and I said, you have to put trees up to cover it. You're gonna have to get the Empire State Building and put it in there. That thing is huge. I don't care. And it also, Father Andrew had the pictures right on Packy Campbell's property, is the identical solar panel that we're looking at in the morning.
Yeah.
And we took that totally by accident. And I did not know that he owned Staples Plaza too. He's the solar installation, and he owns all these
Yeah.
things that we're saying, oh,
Yeah.
well, you know.
Joan, I'm not going to hash that one out with you right now.
No, I'm sorry, but I.
No, you're fine, I
and
totally get it.
think the other people are feeling the same way.
I understand. I will say, when we started our discussion about solar installations, there is new zoning that was put in place by the state to ensure that citizens have the right to what they call solar sky space access.
Mhm.
And so as a planning board, we have to be respectful of landowners to make sure that we're not prohibiting their right to be able to collect energy from the sun. So bear that in mind.
So the most obvious response to that is that he had the right to do it. He could have put it on his roof,
Absolutely.
right? And so I appreciate the fact that you guys were getting very specific about distances from roads and lot lines. But it also seems like one of the pieces that's still missing, that I'm very not happy about, is that we as a town aren't more specific about a plot plan that is actually verifiable, so that when he's putting something in, it's actually going where he told you he's going to put it.
Absolutely, we agree with you. And we feel that the zoning needs to have that. We agree with you completely.
And I think lots of the things that you're doing are taking all the right steps. And it's a shame that something this heinous happened. And
Absolutely.
I view it as heinous because I think it's a personal affront.
Yeah.
After all that we've done to invest in cleaning up the farm, to have this come along and happen. And so and the other thing, I'm sure that we're going to go back and talk to the selectmen again, because just saying I got an email from him after everything that's happened is just not going to be okay.
Yeah, I respect what you're saying here. Unfortunately, this isn't the right forum
I
to discuss
understand.
that. And I understand your frustration and
Being kind of a newcomer to town, I'm kind of fighting my way around.
And you're totally fine, and we're glad you're here, we're glad to have this discussion with you. But out of respect for Mr. Zacher, we can't put him in this position in this
Well,
meeting
that's okay.
to
I'll
discuss
back him
that.
later.
Okay.
Just a different,
Yes, Mr.
nothing
Walsh.
against this, but were all the things meant, at that last meeting, would you know if all the rulings, we're gonna go into adjourn, we're gonna vote this, and we don't have a second? Do you know if all the ground rules for conducting that meeting, things voted on, I don't know what they would have been. You're our expert.
Behind the camera.
The result is he's going to move it.
No, that's not what I'm saying. Did they follow the ground rules for the meeting to do all the, the craziness, first,
Protocol.
seconds?
May I answer that question?
Mr. Comeau,
That's
you
up to
may.
you, you're the chair.
I'm happy to have
To answer it accurately, the statute, RSA 91A, states that when the vote takes place, the members who motioned and the members who seconded must be in the minutes. It has to happen that way, or else it's not official. There was no motion and there was no second. There was votes independently taken on the A, B, C, D, and E, or the A, B, C, and D. But the overall motion to accept the equitable waiver did not occur. So I don't know how the minutes are going to accurately show who motioned and who seconded. Sorry, it's a technicality. That didn't happen.
So we're going to end it right there.
Okay, I'm leaving.
No, you don't have to leave, you can stay. But we won't continue the discussion on that specific ZBA meeting for the rest of the meeting. Sorry. Back to our zoning ordinance discussion here. I think we're all in agreement that we wanted to have this to be very rigorous. We're in the early stages here, and Ed, I appreciate you putting this together. Would it be, yes?
One more comment. This is ordinance. We want to make it part of our zoning.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we got to wordsmith that out.
So what I was going to suggest is that we take this document with some comments, I transmit it to the town lawyer, we start the discussion about formalizing our zoning ordinance for solar, and get the discussion on the alternative energy sources ironed out. And that way we can have a document from her, because she's, in the end, is going to write the zoning ordinance for us, and then we can amend and make updates and changes as we see fit. and then we can discuss it at the next meeting.
Sorry.
So we do it for solar,
Well, that's what I was gonna ask. We have wind.
yes?
Conversation around solar, we have conversation around alternative. Do we want 3 different ones? Should it all be one? Should we change our wind to update it to make it look like the solar?
Well, I want to ask that question of her.
Yeah.
Do we,
That would make it broad again, so that's my argument for making it broad to include outside wood furnaces.
well, I'll say this. When you, as Ed has clearly pointed out, there's redundancy between all of these different parts of our zoning depending on what energy source we're trying to hit. I know we as a group want to be efficient in how the language in which we use in order to put together the zoning ordinance. Let's just have to, I need to inquire with Laura and see whether or not that's a possibility, or we have to keep everything separated from a
Why
legal
don't I
standpoint.
keep it separate? Because you could almost copy it for other pieces of equipment.
Well, I don't know if you can though. 'cause I
That's
think
kind of what we did here.
Right, and I think we've run into some issues where some things aren't applicable. So, yeah, yes.
I would be in favor of doing a general alternate energy policy, but have subcategories, because there's a lot of common
Right,
issues like location,
yes.
size. Some are emitting smoke, some are not, some they have.
Yeah.
And then address each of those individually to the specific energy source, rather than trying to, author independent
Yeah.
policies for each type of energy.
And I would say that perhaps to your point there has to be a paragraph stating this is not inclusive of the solar, wind, wood stove, or whatever other things we declare, that any other energy source not listed here and needs, a building permit and review by the planning board. That way if something comes down the line that we're not aware of, at least we have an opportunity to address it before it gets built.
Well, maybe they could be like a prelude that covers all the things with the cross. And then each specific,
Yeah.
each one of the things down below, with different measurements depending on what the energy source is.
Absolutely. So I will take that away. I will get in touch with the town lawyer. We'll start the discussion about the zoning, what it's going to look like, and for next meeting, I'll try to have answers and new text for us to review.
I like Gus's idea, but obviously we can all taking what we have in the wind ordinance and blowing it up, moving wind into the, subcategory A or whatever.
Yes.
Solar subcategory B, other stuff is C, with the preamble that applies to all of them.
Can I ask a procedural question? So, once you guys have a draft of this, is there then a public comment, public review session?
There will be. So every month we'll have this meeting and we'll review, and if you'd like to look at it while we're here, certainly you can look at it. By the time we get to finalizing the items, warrant articles that we want to put on the ballot, we will conduct a public hearing, and there'll be a period of time, I think it's 2 or 3 weeks, in which the public can review all of the documentation that accounts for the ordinance changes.
It's getting very late in the process, so it's almost better to get the comments earlier.
Yeah, we try to start early in August, starting working on zoning
Well, we
changes.
probably wouldn't have been interested if it wasn't for the catastrophe across the street.
Completely understand. That's why we're here.
What is the alternate, you're talking about alternate power supplies, but is there a definition what the regular power supply is? And what are we alternate against? Alternate to what?
Carbon.
Alternative energies,
So that's
sources.
spelled out?
Well,
I mean,
we have-
what's the regular if you're assuming,
It says non-carbon sources.
As opposed to, traditional, propane.
just so long as that's defined, that's all. Okay, that makes sense.
Well, the problem we're having is, we know we have today, we don't know what's coming tomorrow.
Exactly, that's where it's going.
Because the outdoor furnaces would be a carbon source, so we should probably should be for non-carbon sources if we're going to include that.
All right, good discussion. Move on to the next item, gravel pit inspections. So we need to get notification out. I've shared that with the letters with Ed. The idea, the plan is to get something out in the next couple of weeks, so in October we could schedule those inspections.
The letter seems fine. I would just add that we should request that they have the remediation plan available.
Not the remediation plan,
Are
but
they supposed to be there when we inspect or not?
they are not, they don't have to.
They don't have to be, so we can't ask them to have that available.
Right.
But we have one, but we don't have the other on file?
It's the reclamation plan.
Reclamation.
Yeah, ones, I don't think we have either now, so we still have to source that. And we can follow up with that in the letter also. Yes, Mr. Comeau.
Oh, thank you. The RSA 155E does state that one of the requirements to pass the inspection is the reclamation plan being followed? So if you don't have it, I don't know how that would happen. So my advice is to fail it until you get the plans.
Thank you.
And on a side note, when the inspection is completed, a copy of that has to go to the selectmen also.
And the code enforcement.
So should the letter that they receive from us give them a heads up on that?
Let's go sort it out.
That's what I was thinking, but I didn't realize they weren't necessarily present.
Yeah, they don't have.
We could ask them to provide what they have
Yeah,
in advance of the meeting or something.
yeah. A reminder doesn't hurt. Next item, updating subdivision regulations. So I know, last month there was voiced concern about some of our regulation documents, whether or not they were, this one's from 2008, whether or not they are current. I think I took a look through it. There's a couple just maintenance items as far as where postings for meetings are located. The other one was, I think I need to check Section D, Article 5, Section D, which is the board action on completed application. I don't think that is current, the RSA 676-4, which is the 65 days. I think that became shorter recently. And was it? Yes.
I printed out a paragraph, and they're great. It's the paragraph on wetlands. When I read it, it had to do with funnel development and wetlands and...
Final development of waterfront lots, Article 6, 8, and 10.
Whenever it's about a paragraph about the AV, that's the one. Waterfront. There's a lot more waterfront in this town than just lake. Do we mean the lake, or do we mean waterfront? We have plenty of brooks, which are waterfront. That was my observation there, other than the one that I think Ed's working on.
So the question is, what is the definition of waterfront? Yes?
Yeah, I guess. Is it in the back? I don't know if we define it.
Wetlands, no. There's no
definition from the front.
Yeah, there's no waterfront definition. That's a good call out.
Wetlands, that's it.
We should just be specific. Are we talking the lake, or are we talking...
Yeah.
The seasonal brook.
Yeah.
If someone has a seasonal brook, you think they have waterfront property?
We've had people build on Pike Brook because they have waterfront, but they don't have frontage. We lost it. So, is it waterfront, or is it the lake?
Right.
Good question. I will make an inquiry with the lawyer on that one, because there should be a definition for waterfront, I would think.
And I bet it's very broad. Waterfront is...
Right.
Brook is waterfront.
That's okay, I'm still running.
Thanks,
Oh,
Ed.
thank God.
Generator. I thought we lost it. Frames.
Nope.
You say the magic word, you went on and on.
All right, so I will inquire of this. I have a good list for the town lawyer this month. This is good. Did you have any comments for?
On the subdivision
Yes.
regulations? I liked Rich's thing on waterfront. I think in Article 10, where it refers to the Brookfield zoning ordinance, I'm not sure we need to do that. I think we should control that under our subdivision regulations,
Yeah.
and just start that paragraph with whereas the town requires, et cetera. If anybody has Article 10 in front of them.
Well, I guess the question is, does Article 2, District Section A, is that the right reference to begin with? That was kind of my,
Oh, I think I checked that,
okay.
but that may have changed since.
Well, I think that's the problem, because we said, well, whereas the town requires a minimum 200 feet of shoreline frontage to obtain a building permit on the waterfront lot, and whereas the town deems it necessary to manage the density of development, but that's not correct.
Right.
Because it's 250 feet of shorefront and 250 feet on a class 5 road, right?
Contiguous.
It's both, right?
Right,
And it's contiguous is what the whole paragraph needs updated, then, right?
yes.
Yeah, right.
You want to take a stab at that, Ed? The
Sure.
paragraph, and I'll inquire about the waterfront.
For the next meeting?
Yes, please. Any other comments on the subdivision regulation? So the idea is we can make updates to this document. We can then call a public hearing, review the document, and then vote on it. And then we can enact this as the new subdivision regulation. So that's the process we're going to try to do with this year, is to update some of these in order to make sure they're correct to the zoning that we've enacted over the past several of the years.
So do we want to take out any reference to zoning ordinance numbers? In here, just have it as a standalone separate document?
I think that's the way we were coached. Remember, keep only in one place.
Yeah. Yeah, so then that would be referred to as zoning ordinance Article 2, Section A2, and then that whole section where it states what it is gets wiped out.
Are we gonna do any work with the driveway, public way, private roads? You know, we stumbled on those before.
Yeah, certainly.
I just thought it might be a good idea to clarify those somehow.
Absolutely. Do you have any comments right now?
No, but it caught my eye, going, yeah, we stumbled on that, so
Yeah.
maybe it's something we should be thinking about too.
And defining what those roads are, right?
Right.
The standard for the private road,
Right.
is that what you're talking about? Tom?
Private road,
Yeah.
especially.
Approved private road.
Right.
Right, and then it's approved for private, right, exactly.
Well, then that goes back to what Rich was saying. Should that refer back to the zoning ordinance for its definition?
Yeah, don't intuit it different.
Or do we just,
Because I think we ran into this a couple of years ago. We were discussing this and we were trying to determine, was the zoning ordinance definition right or the subdivision regulation definition correct? Specifically around public, private road.
Private road.
Yeah.
well, what's the ZBA going to do? What would the ZBA do? Look at their zoning ordinance? They wouldn't necessarily look at subdivision regs, would they?
Right.
We look at those to approve something, and then they would look at it to give it a waiver, and look at their own stuff.
So I keep wrestling with, there's lots in town that don't have access. And I'm not sure we can say you can't build on it. I just don't know. And so if someone comes in and says, I own a lot, I want to put a house on it,
Sure.
I can put it, but it doesn't have the frontage.
Yeah, we've had this discussion a couple of years ago.
And where I was going with it,
Yeah.
it behoove us to say, see, I don't think it would stand up in court. Here's a lot that the town is, it's a valid lot, you can't go on it.
Well, we have,
Class 6 roads all over the place.
right, which we've defined as you can.
Wouldn't access be necessary because the town would be liable for medical emergencies, fire, things like that, if they had no access?
Right. That was part of the discussion at the time. So there was a couple of years ago, we discussed whether or not there should be building lot opportunities on Class 6 roads. And so the discussion was, well, who maintains the road? To what standard does this private road get built to? How does medical, fire, and all the other access, how is that regulated? And then, the town only plows up to the end of the Class 5 road. Who's responsible for the berm and everything that occurs that impedes travel on that Class 6 road to that home?
I guess they'd be happier if you would, when you talk to the lawyer, can we really enforce that? If you don't have 250 feet on an approved private road, it's not buildable. Can we win that in court? Because if
You're talking about specifically a private road.
Yes.
Approved private roads.
No, it's not approved. I want to put a road in. And you tell us I can't?
You mentioned no access before, what did you mean by that? It just doesn't have frontage? Is there
It doesn't have
approved frontage, or?
There's lots down by the lake that are old, that don't have frontage, but they're,
Zero frontage, there's no road that goes there. What happens if there's a fire, and the fire department can't get there, and people die?
yeah.
The town is gonna be, we allow that to happen. I don't think we can do that. I think that would be unconscionable.
Can we win that in court? If we can't, then my bias was we should define what the specs are for a road.
I think it's defined.
Yeah.
Well, if you look at the subdivision, that's blacktop, that's really extreme.
Right.
But it's along the line of a driveway. Driveways are pretty small, they should be wider, but we don't have any regs on how wide a driveway has to be. But along those lines, if we're gonna lose it, if we're gonna lose the case, then we want to get ahead of its error. If you're gonna do it, it should look like this. If we're gonna win it, we don't need it. If the attorney says, no, you're solid with your zoning, it's not gonna happen, forget it.
I'll ask. All right, we're gonna move on, if we're all set right here. Oh my, this is running long. New business. So, last meeting, it was brought to the board about the possibility of 5-acre lot minimums zoning. And I think probably the best way to handle this discussion would just be to make a motion. Does the board want to entertain 5-acre lot minimum zoning this year? Do I have a second?
You made a motion?
I just made the motion.
I'll second.
Okay.
The motion is to entertain it, or the motion is to what?
The motion is,
To entertain it.
do we want to discuss 5-acre lot minimum
This
year?
Yes.
I gotta write this down before I forget.
That's what the request was, wasn't it? That we
Yeah.
discuss it?
Mr. Zacher, second, is there any discussion around this item?
That was the original, or it was prior,
What's that?
5-acre.
It wasn't, so it was 2 acres.
Oh,
The,
okay.
the request last month was for the board to consider 5 acres as the new minimum.
Okay.
I would be supportive of that because it discourages people from subdividing their properties even further.
Mhm.
That's
You would be
simple.
for it or against?
I would be in favor of it.
We'll vote about it, you don't have to say it.
Oh, okay.
All in
Yeah.
favor?
No, done deal.
I want to hear pros and cons.
You want to hear pros and
Yeah.
cons?
I don't know who's going to come up with those.
It'll be the discussion, I think.
Okay. So,
There's one positive, I guess.
Mhm.
yeah,
It's with our master plan.
Well, what if the 2 acre parcels are already established and declared buildable lots?
Has a lot. They have to be grandfathered, right?
Right.
Zoning only applies when they pass it.
It's really gonna apply to just subdividing.
yes. So let's vote then. So all those in favor of discussing 5 acre lot minimums this year, please say aye.
Aye.
Right.
Opposed? No. So we're going to talk about it. We'll put it on the agenda for next month.
My comments are, it should be easy for us to propose a change for the town to vote on. We have to just be aware of our overlay for workforce housing. We can't impact that reform.
So I'll say for next month, then the board needs to research what other communities have 5 acre lot minimums and what that zoning looks like. And
Okay.
Does the workforce housing have specific requirements?
Yeah,
In terms of-
density and the type of house, it runs down 109.
Is that federally mandated?
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
So we can't impact that, but
Yeah.
if they develop it, we need somebody to want to develop it. And so
Yeah.
far, no one's wanted to develop it.
all right, the last item is our 2024 budget. As you can see, we spent a lot of money year over year as a board. We're very efficient. So if for people who have not been involved in this process, whatever money we don't spend goes back into the general fund. So we can make a proposal, it goes to the selectmen, and they thumbs up or thumbs down our proposal, and then that's it, it gets decided.
So the only thing that struck me was, and we talked about referring to a lawyer
Yep.
10 times, is there what line item does legal fees go into?
You got it. The selectmen had 3 line items, selectmen, zoning board, and planning board, for the lawyer.
So, how come, where's legal for the planning board?
Under the selectmen's budget.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We covered the ZBA, the planning board, and the
So
select.
how much do we have?
5,000 in each.
And when this lawyer came at the end of June,
Yep.
how much did that cost?
That's the 500.
Did you come up with the proposal?
I did.
Then I would like to go along with his proposal.
You want to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we accept his proposal.
All right.
I'll second that.
All right, let me capture this. Any other discussion on the budget? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the budget for 2024, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. All right. My voice is still with me, barely. Member comments? We cleared the room other than Ed. All right, no member comments. Our next meeting is scheduled for October 9th. It is 8:23, this meeting's adjourned.
So in hindsight, now that the meeting's over, it's not over, you're still in quorum. So is the meeting ended yet?
No.
You're still here.
I'm sorry, my to-do is Article 10, Title 10 on subdivision. That's it, please.
If it's not about
Yeah.
anything about planning, you
And
can
the-
say it.
Maybe I have time.
No,
I'm
there's-
moving to
Oh,
Spain for 2 weeks.
That would be
Okay.
a legal
I'm
meeting
going to do anything for like 2.5.
officially.
So that's why everybody talks after the meeting too.
Yeah, usually I have,
I'll take one.
which is illegal. And unethical.
Well, I guess,
Not great.
so Ed,
You get draft
I
documents.
will ask the question. When you commented about the formality of the, what is that, what is the implication of that?
It was in the email.
Start about the second.
Yeah.
Yeah, the facts.
Yes, I know you wanted to. Yes.
Statute RSA 91A is clear.
Yes.
That when you
Yes.
look at
No, I get it.
motion, that didn't happen.
No, so what is,
I know,
what is
I know.
what does that mean?
It didn't happen.
The meeting didn't happen?
No, the vote didn't.
So I like to give one.
Isn't that like Robert's Rules of Order
And that's fine. I like to give one to the assessor.
It is.
I give two to the assessor.
We're trying to argue that with Robert Rules, we never did a document, we're going to use Robert Rules now.
Right.
But it says in there that has to happen, you can't lie and say that it wasn't. Under the circumstances, if I was zoning board, since that changes the
That's the same
I could issue reading the public hearing and I wanted to do it over. So that others know exactly what that means. And this time, we should make sure that they vote.
So how do we make that happen? That's the right
Chair,
thing
chair of the zoning board.
to do that.
Does the zoning board call for that meeting or is it selectmen?
Yeah, send me a note about it. And they're fully.
Now, you photographed the zoning board, right?
Yeah.
That's why
I didn't find out about it until the next day. Bob Nelson left a note on my tractor, and I didn't see it until the next morning.
fishing.
Because he must have left it the day of the meeting.
So did they actually,
Well, I don't know,
That's not the official new one, though. The one I got last week.
But they're, they don't want that to be an answer.
You go to the map, or you can your mouse.
So I feel like that's,
He could make a motion. So that's
right.
Where you go?
was it illegal
good for you.
when
Seems to be the thing to do, right?
rated over here
That's the best time of year coming up.
and a selectman?
Look at today, how nice.
Yeah, but he
Running off the
can't,
generator or
Right.
we lose power or?
can he be two things? Can he be a selectman?
I don't hear a
and
generator.
public?
Yeah, I don't think it was off long enough.
So there's new houses down there, they always.
Well, you did mention that, but
There's quite a glow down there, the use of power.
It comes into play if he's discussing
Yes, it
that
is.
skirts, yes, he has authority over.
They're trying to,
Well, they're pretty upset.
I know, I know.
Let's talk about the ZBA meeting real quick.
You want to come to the selectmen's meeting?
That's not the issue.
Is it that tomorrow?
Be here next
Tuesday.
okay,
If they post
So,
the meeting.
Yeah,
because I feel like they're like,
They're upset.
they're starting.
Oh, okay.
You might see some fisticuffs, is that what you're
I think something's brewing,
Okay.
which I understand, I'm not saying that they're wrong.
Well, Ed was here, you were
Yeah.
here.
Good that they don't be
The
involved.
gentleman representing the installation is not a stand-up.
Right.
Right.
And so I think that's where.
You say, I want to go to the next zoning board, what do I
Leave
have
them
to do?
trust
Or
us.
the planning board, do I have to do anything?
Rather
Always
than
remember.
he's looking out for himself, not for.
Yeah, but I'm not a member of the
Right.
zoning board.
That's
You're by yourself, you're not a quorum of the board.
Is that
to show
good
up in
assessment?
place.
But is there any
Yeah, but if he
in
shows up
a
and I
position
show
where they
up
can
and we
say,
didn't-
we can say, like, look, they follow the rules, if they put a stake in, it's
That's what we're gonna say.
okay.
I want to say, if you don't like it,
A meeting
Change
is
your
a
zoning.
quorum
Yes.
of the board.
Yeah.
But it doesn't correct their current issue.
You don't go back.
And so that's, but I feel like they don't, that's not a.
But we don't have to
We're
send
not
a
gonna
post
accept that answer.
a notice, only if you're a selectman.
I know.
It's like Tim said earlier, over here, you know, the sawmill went in, we didn't have a rule against it.
Right.
Now we have a rule against sawmills, there's
Right.
only gonna be one.
Yeah.
That's
Like, we have to act quickly.
Right.
Sure.
The
That.
court's gonna say
Get
it
this
has
stuff
to be.
through.
Right.
So you
We're a small town, 700 people.
Right.
That's why I go through it.
Before
That we don't
show
host
and
them.
the board
I'm
has
surprised
to
no
be-
one's complaining about
Wow.
this. Never knew that. You in my backyard, you know that?
Well, I don't know anything, so I did not know that.
I wanted to go to that, I'm very very
to the planning
sympathetic
board.
to the Nelsons.
I just,
wanted to go to
the
that
only
meeting,
reason
but
why I
I
suggest
didn't get
being
the
more
notice till the
specific
next
is so
morning.
something like that
But
doesn't
after
happen.
the meeting.
Oh, yeah. I got
Because people are like, oh, what?
Here's the plan.
Do you know what I mean?
Well, I
Like,
don't think anybody thought that eventuality would happen, right?
right,
But they
I
adjourned.
mean,
because it just seems like common sense.
I mean, it could have gone the other way too. It could have been the gentleman
How
with
they all get along.
Can we comment on the food from the barbecue? I thought it was really good.
Right,
And the same complaint could have happened from all the other neighbors.
right,
Or you might decide to have pigs,
Right.
and you live next door to him.
Issue,
right.
that could be a
I
scope.
mean, it's like, does he have a right to have pigs? Sure he does.
Well, I wanted to ask a question
I mean,
about
it's
that.
hard.
What is that?
I know.
And that's a tough lot.
All I wanted to know-
Because it's all tall pine
You can't
trees
even-
and it's.
I know, I mean, I don't get it, I just am thinking about like all of it playing out, like I just kind of think about like, is there anything? Like, they were, I just got the sense that they were kind
Did we
of
screw it up?
You hit the nail on the
like
head.
not accepting the answer. The answer is, it happened,
They don't want to move.
they don't want to accept that answer.
That's what they got.
They got
Right.
it.
And the behavior of the
Right.
I
gentleman
think 30 feet is a pretty
representing.
good,
Who's the head of the zoning board?
Inflame them
I don't know
more.
the chairs.
Right.
So if I call
I didn't make a
and
decision,
just
statement.
suggest that,
Yeah.
inappropriate of me to do that?
if he goes diagonally off that corner.
Just by
that's
myself.
pretty
It's
good.
going to happen.
That puts you on a 50-foot setback. I would think.
He was not telling himself.
Okay, well then I'll do that. If you think that's the right thing to do, it sounds like the right thing to do, and it sounds like.
I don't think I got
Yeah, yeah, throwing, gas on the fire, yeah.
Screwed with it, just stuck at it.
Were there a number of members?
Exactly.
There's gonna be more of them eventually.
That's what the fella said.
Tim and Ed.
Yeah.
At the zoning.
We're talking about your illegal meeting.
Wait, we go meeting.
I'm kidding.
So if I would have shown up, it would have been illegal.
It's 3, yes.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, at the gravel pit, you mean?
Always remember.
No, the zoning
If you
board
go to
meeting.
any meeting,
Yeah,
other than this one, like you went to a zoning board meeting,
yeah.
and 3 of us showed up,
A quorum, if a quorum shows up.
that's illegal.
Yes,
So,
it's not
so
posted.
I've asked the lawyer about that.
She's not, go ahead.
I've asked the lawyer about that because Saret and I used to go to planning board meetings.
Right?
And the first thing she said, what are you talking about and are you making decisions? If you're not making decisions, there's no issue.
You mean you personally?
Any board, you can go like,
Well,
don't,
gosh, I hope
don't.
we're making.
Just don't sit
decisions.
together.
No.
If you go to a selectmen's meeting,
Yes,
3 of you,
yes.
Just a resident
As a
of
citizen.
town, as
but,
a, yeah.
no, but 3 planning board members come
Yeah.
to a meeting
Mhm.
and you make a decision about planning board issues, that's illegal.
Oh, right, okay.
Now, I have to correct you, and I'll correct the lawyer too. If you, and this is not me making it up, and it's not an interpretation. If you read the statute, it doesn't only say decisions. It says advisory. It says operational control. It uses these words that say it's not only making a decision. It's when you're talking about what you have, when you can contemporaneously speak to one another. You're talking about, now when you're here and you're talking about zoning, that's what you have enforcement over. So you are illegally sitting in a meeting if 2 of you are talking about zoning. If you 2 all come in here and say nothing but just about a barbecue, that's not an illegal meeting.
But what if we all go to the selectmen meeting and we're not talking to each other?
Or we ask questions, and we don't just make any decisions at all, we just ask questions,
Is it
informative
about
questions.
what you have control over? Or if you're discussing planning board stuff, you're not supposed to do it.
That's the
fine.
key.
She's
If you
wrong.
go to a selectmen's meeting and start talking planning board stuff, it's a
Yeah.
no-no.
What you
But
have.
there's some overlap of content.
Well, it's not, well, it's depends. If you want to go to court, they're going to say, well, you should have posted it, you should have minutes. That's why I just said just post the meeting.
So if you say
Just say
nothing,
you're gonna
and you
lie.
collect information, and then you make decisions later at a planning board meeting based on some of those information, that's okay? As long as you said nothing and discussed it with no other planning board members at that meeting?
Well, I don't know how that would help in court if I argued it, but, you know, that's,
Because that's just like your personal,
As a
like
citizen,
data
I want to
gathering.
know what these guys
Yeah,
are doing.
no, you yourself, yes, but if you're going as half the planning board and you're going to start talking about what you have control over, it's not okay.
That's the key.
Right, that's
the
key.
key.
If you sit there if you go, like we went to the ZBA meeting, we sat there quietly and listened.
But you could have said something.
We could have said something.
But if
you
three
have to
of us,
say,
but if
you have
three
to
of
say
us
I'm
were there.
representing myself
Yeah, I'm not representing.
as a resident, not, because that was,
Well,
Not
that's-
acting on
That was my
behalf of the planning
fundamental
board.
question. Can you be a selectman and the general public? Can you be two people?
well, that was a good
Probably
question.
not the selectmen.
We had that discussion.
Rich, can you be or not?
Well, it's very, if I'm by myself, there's no decision, right? I'm private. As soon as I get there with another selectman and we start discussing the issue, that's a no-no.
Because the statute says contemporaneously hear one another and communicate. And it's doing that because if you get a board that may not get along, and one guy's left out home and didn't know you were showing up, and suddenly you are talking off camera, like in the corner, like I've seen you two doing.
Oh,
And you come in, I got it on film. I got it on film. So you're talking about stuff, and the next meeting you come in and start making decisions. That doesn't look good. And why would anybody do that?
You have to
You
think
have
of
to
this like a
public trust.
card game,
Rich,
like a poker game, seriously.
Oh, we had a fundraiser. for-
What's that?
You gotta think of it like a poker game.
Cups or half.
Right.
Two people have similar interests, say things that have, certain symbolic significance or whatever, and that could be a form of collusion.
But I would encourage everybody to go get 91A training. It's online, read the statute. I'm not making it up. The words are there. You can't argue with it.
So just don't sit together or make Google eyes at each other. You're good.
So on this
I didn't know.
roof thing, the Lakeford Road issue that we talked about. Lakeford Road.
Yeah.
All I want to know is, did we screw up?
Nobody screwed up. Nobody.
Everybody followed the right procedures and
The-
policies.
The building permit said, because they asked that question after the fact, I said, what did the building permit said? The building permit said, follow all town setbacks. Was there a sketch? No. That should, in the proposal now says, get a good sketch.
Right.
That would have solved the problem.
Right.
The other issue is,
But why did he get a building permit unless he had?
but he said he's going to follow the setbacks. 20-foot setback for a
Of an ancillary.
Right.
ancillary.
Right. So the
It's defined
key
as
part is he was asking for an exception. What was the term of, what was it?
Special.
Equitable waiver.
Equitable waiver. So he was actually admitting that he was in violation, but he was looking for forgiveness, so he didn't have to
So why
change
did
it.
we give him that? Or who, were the building?
Well, the vote was not good.
Did you hear the public tonight?
I heard them. They weren't happy.
Technically.
Should we invite Nick to a
It's
meeting?
5X the last, the other meeting.
Nick to a meeting, because, of a community meeting or a planning board meeting? Because his input may have had some.
But, yeah.
He's not a meeting person, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
I know Nick.
He's not a meeting person. He comes up pretty fast.
So Marshall, to answer your question though, is that the process that we have put in place was followed, but we don't have anything specifically for this condition that occurred.
Well, but if we don't have a plot line and a location of where it's gonna be, how do you get a building permit by just saying, oh, we're gonna follow the rules?
Because he used the word ancillary, he applied for the ancillary exception rather than the structure, and the ancillary allows him
20 feet.
20 feet. It was really close, and then there was a big problem.
But, so there's no height restriction on that?
So the zoning, so the building inspector's the one who says that's okay?
Yeah, he consulted with the selectmen, and we thought it was okay for,
It should have been the same as when.
Equitable waiver.
the type of structure was.
Ancillary.
Ancillary.
Yeah. So that was new zoning we put in place because of another ZBA meeting that occurred a year ago, which pertained to a carport in Cedar Park that was placed on the, next to the lot line. And so are you recording this?
Yeah. That's fine. That's good.
Are you transmitting it?
No, my phone got really hot and shut down.
Good.
Must have been a conversation.
So that zoning with ancillary structure was the result of that ZBA meeting discussion because there was a discrepancy of how the lot line was established and that we then, we were present for that we walked away from that and said, well, we need to do something about that and define ancillary structure, which also prompted the landowner who did not, that they judged against. She put together a warrant article to allow for the setback in Cedar Park to enable her to be able to put that carport in, which passed. And then we amended, that was 2 years ago, and then we amended it to make sure it was, in line with the rest of the zoning setbacks as defined within our zoning last year. So a lot of these things, unfortunately, come about because of incidents that occur, and then we have to react because none of us are professional zoning people at all, and so we're in a reactionary position rather than a proactive position.
So do we have the time, then if I've pulled building permits and I've gone in and said, greater than 50 feet. I didn't measure it. I know it's greater, it's not close. It wasn't close. So the building inspector says, all right, go for it. He didn't give out a plot plan, greater than 50. The requirement's what, 30 or 40?
So isn't it his job or her job to check stuff out instead of just, yeah, Rich, go for it, man. I trust you.
Sure, we can.
Well, I don't know. I don't know what the guy does or gal. I don't even know who the guy is or gal.
It's probably 30 feet from the corner, when you say the post, the center of that.
Well,
I mean,
I think it becomes different when you talk about this issue here, because this is really like an industrial style installation.
That thing is
It's not like it's somebody building a carport or a one-car garage or something that's residential in nature.
So
I think this is where the rub
did Nick even know how big this sucker was?
No, he would not have known that. And there wasn't, because there wasn't any
Not required to
indication
know.
of the height.
Not required to know that.
There was no height limit.
Yeah.
There's nothing in our zoning.
We want to put one in, we should put one in.
So I think this is why it's important we focus on this. One, because I think it's our duty to make sure that we're looking out for our neighbors.
Right.
But also, we don't know what's next. Before March of next year, somebody could put another one in.
There's a certain amount of learning curve here too,
Yeah.
expected of us. I mean,
Yes.
who would have thought of when they put that thing horizontally, you've got this, 14 by 14 square unit, even though the center post is only 30 feet from the corner, when they lay that thing horizontally, now you're down to 18 feet from the corner.
Right.
Now that they've agreed to move it back, can we retroactively require that they plant vegetation to hide it?
No.
We can't.
There's an easy fix to this. If you listen to the public, they're upset they didn't know, and they want to be informed if there's any changes. So nobody cares about what I think, but what I would do as the zoning board is I would reestablish another public hearing, do the abutter notification, make sure everybody knows that it's being moved. Now, of course, nobody's going to want to see it, but at least you got the technicality out of the way that you've informed them, get them involved in that.
Yes, I understand what you're saying. I don't think that's within our purview. I
don't think it's the planning.
It's the selectmen's or the ZBA's position.
So
you have to issue, the ZBA has to issue a report on it.
Yeah. And honestly, the reason why I say this about the new public hearing is because you're moving it, number one. Let me finish. You're moving it, number one. Now you can tell people, okay, it's getting moved back. The other technicality is you didn't vote to accept. You didn't vote properly to motion and second the vote for the equitable waiver. So I would just do it again.
So
What's the big deal?
What's the big deal? You're setting an expectation that the vote might go a different direction.
Well, I'm sorry, but that's how it is. It's property and the people want to know what's happening.
That's different than setting an expectation.
But
we're going to have input on where it's going to be located?
No, they're not going to be able to have input on where it is. It has to be, the equitable waiver is still going to be applied here.
Equitable waiver says you can keep it where it is.
Okay, so then what's going to happen? So the equitable waiver is now gone, correct? Or no? What is it? Is that waiver now null and void now that he's going to move it?
No.
He's only moving it, he's just trying to do the right thing,
So
kinda,
the way-
right?
so
He doesn't
the way-
have to do it, yeah.
No,
It sounds like he
He
is.
does,
Yeah.
actually, because they
Oh.
denied him the equitable waiver.
That's what I
which-
mean.
Oh,
Which would
okay,
allow him to leave it in
He
place.
is.
okay.
So what does he have to do now that
He
he's
has to
denied?
be, he has to be in compliance. To really be sure he's in compliance, he's gonna have to have it surveyed. That's a lot of money. So what do you do if you don't wanna spend a lot of money? You err on the other side.
Yeah, move it.
Be very generous, make sure there's no question about where the property line is. That's
But
what
then the
he's doing.
issue of a wetland
But
comes up.
why is part of the building permit, why isn't that required before he gets the building permit?
It normally is.
Well,
A plot plan usually, whenever you put up a structure,
Huh?
Tamworth has a
No,
building, Tamworth has
it's
a
not a
building
requirement
notification
currently
form.
to have a survey plan.
well, not a survey, but a plot plan, I mean, a sketch. I mean, I know any permit I ever got, I always had to have a sketch showing property
So
lines
who-
and where the
who
proposed
does that,
building site.
zoning or planning?
What's that?
Planning.
Requiring that as a
In that
document.
document.
That would be planning?
Yeah. So we can set the zoning to specify that a site plan is required for the installation.
Absolutely.
Which is what, Charlie is it? The horse farm guy?
Bob,
That's what he.
Is that what he was?
Yes.
yeah.
And notification, and we can
But
specify
didn't it say it in there somewhere, Ed, in the
In the
solar
draft.
thing?
In the draft.
in the draft that we're putting
That's not
together.
voted, that's not voted in though.
No, but I just.
Like
so
for
my
wind,
memory
yes.
is correct.
For future.
If you want to put up a wind, you need a plot plan.
So if you want to put up one of these, shouldn't you have a plot?
That's
what it says.
That's what we're proposing.
And what about a solar farm?
We have to figure that out.
Sorry, but
Well, yes, we should discuss that now, because
I
the
know.
meeting is over, but
well, we're still in our meetings.
But you can get at that with megawatt next.
I have a quick question. You know
Yes, sir.
those windmills that farmers used to use to pump water?
yes.
Would that fall under this purview of?
It's not an energy system.
No, it's not an
No.
energy source,
Okay.
Wouldn't it be under the wind ordinance?
but the
But
wind
it's like a
ordinance is
pump.
just
It's
for
like
power
a-
generation.
So,
It's generated.
you put a windmill up with a generator and you pump water, right? With the pump. As
Pump-
opposed
just
to-
to
Pump water instead of generating
Instead of the
electricity.
up and down, you.
But you're not, yes. you're
But
not
he has
selling
height,
it.
he has
I
height.
think it is arguable that it is an energy source. If
Yeah.
you're pumping water with it. I would think.
Anyways,
I've thought about it.
It's a fine line.
That's a great way to
Right
aerate,
next to
if
the
you have a
wind.
pond, you can aerate your pond.
So,
People like
so we
that.
have an opportunity.
Hurry
to
use,
take it.
hurry use,
Right.
hurry use. State
I
regs.
I still don't understand.
State regs, state regs.
And I would say